Hey there. So you're listening to one of your young students read, and you're thinking, how do I help them get from that choppy, word-by-word struggle to reading like they're telling a great story? Well, if that sounds familiar, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to break down how to teach reading fluency using the state's official playbook. We're going to take standard K-2.F.F.1 and turn it into a clear, actionable plan that you can use to build that bridge from just decoding words to truly understanding. So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with why fluency is so much more than just reading fast. Then we'll dive deep and unpack the standards so our target is crystal clear. After that, it's all about the practical stuff: how to plan, how to teach a really powerful classroom routine, how to support every single one of your learners, and finally, how to know that what you're doing is actually making a difference. All right, let's jump right in with that first big piece, the why. Because before we can teach fluency effectively, we all need to be on the same page about what it really is and why it's such a critical building block for our students. I want you to just think about that for a second. When you hear that phrase, a fluent reader, what's the very first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of us, it's just one word: speed. But is that the whole picture? And this is where we hit a really common misconception. The goal is not just about getting kids to read faster. The real goal, the whole point of teaching fluency, is to free up their brain power. You see, when a student isn't struggling to sound out every single word, their brain is finally free to think about what the text actually means. It's all about reading with understanding, with accuracy, and with that expression that really brings a story to life. Okay, so we've got our why. Now let's get laser focused on our target. We're going to unpack exactly what standard K2.F.F.1 is asking our students to be able to do. And here it is. The standard itself tells us the goal isn't just about reading out loud. It's about reading for understanding. This means fluency is literally the bridge that connects decoding words to actually comprehending them. And notice that phrase, self-correcting as necessary? That is so important. It means fluent readers are actively thinking, monitoring for meaning, and fixing their own mistakes as they go. Now, a huge piece of this fluency puzzle is something called prosody. I know, it sounds like a fancy academic word, but it's actually pretty simple. It just means reading with feeling. It's the rhythm, the tone of voice, the phrasing that makes reading sound like you're talking, not like a robot just calling out a list of words. It really is the music of language. So what does this actually look and sound like in a student? Well, the evidence document gives us this fantastic checklist of look-fors. These are our success criteria. We're listening for automaticity, that effortless, natural-sounding word recognition. We're listening for them to use expression and tone to show a character's feelings. And we're watching for self-correction. That's the ultimate sign that a kid is reading to make meaning, not just to make sounds. Now, this is the cool part. We can take those look-fors and actually build our entire lesson plan around them, using the evidence document as our guide. I want you to think of the evidence document as your instructional rubric. It's like your playbook. It doesn't just tell you what to teach, it shows you exactly what mastery looks like and even gives you teacher prompts and what to expect from students. It's our blueprint for planning a really effective lesson. And this chart, man, this makes it so clear. It gives us a perfect side-by-side of what we're aiming for versus what we need to correct. On the left, that's our goal, reading that sounds like natural speech. And on the right, those are the common hurdles: the robotic reading, the missed punctuation, the flat, monotone voice. These non-examples become our specific teaching targets. All right, let's get into the how. We're moving over to the strategy card to see how we can build a powerful, repeatable routine that brings this standard to life for our students. This Echo Choral Partner routine you see on the strategy card is just so effective because it uses that classic gradual release model. We start with a ton of support in the I do, where I model exactly what fluent reading sounds like. Then we move into guided practice with the we do of echo and choral reading. This builds everyone's confidence before they move to the you do, practicing with a partner. It's this beautiful, scaffolded journey to mastery. Okay, let's try it. This is the I do part. I'm going to model reading these two sentences. Listen to how my voice works. The little cat sat on the mat. He was waiting for his friend. Now here's the key teacher move, the think aloud. Okay, did you hear that? I didn't just say the little cat. I scooped that whole phrase together, the little cat, like it was one big word. And I took a real pause at that period. My voice was also kind of calm and even because the sentence just says he was waiting. See, that's prosody in action. So now imagine we're in our guided practice and a student reads this sentence. But instead of hopped, they say hoped. This is a super common error, right? So, how do we correct it without making them feel bad?
Here's our correction, straight from the strategy card. First, praise the effort. Good try. Second, bring their attention back to the text. Let's look at that word again. Point to it. Third, guide them through decoding. Say the sounds with me. Ha, o, pa. They say the sounds. Now blend it. They say hop. And here's the last, most important step. Have them reread the whole sentence to get the meaning back. Awesome. Now let's reread that whole sentence. That's the quick check that makes sure they're reading for meaning.
And finally, we get to the you do. Students turn to their partner and practice reading that same passage together. This is their chance to be the expert. And while they're reading, I'm walking around, listening with my teacher ears tuned specifically for those success criteria we talked about: phrasing, expression, and especially self-correction. Okay, but we all know that this great routine isn't one size fits all. The real magic of teaching is adapting it to meet the needs of every kid in your room. So let's talk about differentiation. The evidence document is so helpful here because it shows us how the expectations ramp up. For our kindergartners, we're really just focused on the basics, reading at a good pace and at the right volume when we're all reading together. In first grade, we start to explicitly teach prosody and self-correction. By second grade, the goal is for them to do all of this automatically, even with trickier texts. And that brings us to the final, critical piece of the puzzle, closing the loop. How do we know if all this great teaching actually worked? We have to check for understanding and make their learning visible. An exit ticket is the perfect tool for this. It's not some big, scary test. You just ask a student to read a few sentences from the passage we already practiced. And as they read, you're not just listening. You're listening with a purpose, with your ears tuned for evidence of those specific success criteria we named earlier. You can use a super simple checklist just like this one, based directly on our student look-fors. As a student reads to you, you're just quickly jotting down what you see. Okay, phrasing was great, check. Expression was a little flat, so I'll make a note to model that again tomorrow. Ooh, and they fixed a mistake all by themselves. That's a huge win for self-correction, check. This isn't about getting a grade, it's about getting quick, useful info to plan your next move. So let's recap the game plan. First, you unpack the look-fors so you know exactly what you're aiming for. Second, you plan your lesson using the prompts from the evidence document. Third, you teach the echo-choral partner routine. Fourth, you differentiate based on grade level. And fifth, you check for understanding using those very same success criteria. And I'll leave you with this question to think about. This is about so much more than just teaching another skill. When we give our students the tools to read with confidence and expression, we are literally handing them the key to unlock the meaning, the magic, and the joy in every story they read. How might making reading sound like talking help your students fall in love with books all over again?